És akkor én elkezdek beszélni. Okay. Hello, everyone. We welcome all participants arrived so far. We start with our intro, and in the meantime, there will be some time for those who was not able to join yet to join to our webinar. My name is Silvia Agri. I'm the EWPN country ambassador for Hungary. For those who don't know our community yet, European Women Payments Network is a not-for-profit organization, being a champion for a more diverse and inclusive industry related to fintech, cards and payments in Europe. EWPN strives to create more opportunities for women and provide space for the community members to connect, network, share experiences and best practices. To this end, we are organizing networking evenings like this one, and annual events, workshops, researches. It always really good to see when more and more of our male allies, our mates in the sector, join us. Our meetups combine sector-related hot topics with a diversity focus, as we truly believe that diversity matters and brings value to the financial services sector. For today, we have prepared 3 topics for you. Ina, one of my hostmates, will introduce the first one to you soon. But before that, some technical infos. As you can see, the webinar is recorded and will be shared via our YouTube channel for our community. For the best experience, we recommend you to set the side-by-side option in the view option panel. You can reach this panel at the top of your screen, your Zoom screen. All participants are muted and will be muted during the whole webinar. To communicate with us, you can use the Q&A panel at the lower side of the Zoom screen. In the Q&A panel, you will also be able to drop your questions for your speakers, and we would like to encourage you to use this panel. Also, you will be able to vote for questions, for those questions which you like the most. The chat function is only available for the speakers and the hosts, and we will share with technical infos with you if it's needed. We will launch a poll before the second presentation, before Nadia's presentation. You can vote anonymously if you feel it more comfortable. Okay, so let's start the webinar. Please let me introduce the hosts to you. Johanna, it's your turn.
Thank you, Silvia. So just shortly about me. So my name is Johanna Maria Leiner, and I'm the country ambassador for the European Women in Payments Network in Austria. I started this beginning of 2018. I'm also working at PaySafe. I'm Vice President of Compliance, Governance and Ethics. With EWPN, we did so far meetups on the Vienna FinTech Week. And this is actually our first online meetup because of the current situation, everybody at home. So we thought that's a good opportunity for a new setup and also doing a cross-border with our colleagues in Hungary. And yeah, I end of last year, I got some help. So over to you, Bettina. Maybe you want to introduce yourself as well.
Thank you, Johanna. So my name is Bettina Borbola. I joined Johanna beginning of this year, being a EWPN ambassador for Austria. I really enjoy it. This is the first event I am organizing. Had the pleasure to the virtual meetup in this situation what we have currently. I also work at the PaySafe group and in the strategic partnership department. And I'm really happy that everybody is here and we can host you today afternoon. Thank you. Ina, please go ahead, over to you.
Thank you, Bettina. Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for tuning in today with us. I think my colleagues at the EWPN said a lot, so I'm going to be very short. Today, I'm co-ambassador for Hungary together with Sylvia, and I work as product manager for SIA. Today, I'm going to introduce you our wonderful speakers and handle the Q&A sessions with them. Okay. So before we move on to our first session, we thought we would invite you for a very short poll. We are thinking of posting 2 questions to you, and we would like you to respond to them, and we will address the results in our next upcoming session. So the first question is, what impact will the pandemic have on work-life balance in the workplace? So please be honest with us and share your thoughts. Do you think it will make it worse? Do you think it will make it better? Will it go back to as it was? Or do you think that it will allow for better conversations around productivity? Okay. And shortly, we will have another question that is also HR related. Please remember that the answers are going to be handled in an anonymous way. We are not going to share the outcomes with your bosses or anyone else, so you can be completely open and honest with us today. Okay. So the results and the next question should appear shortly. Okay. So we would like to hear from you and see what is the focus of your career at the moment. So are you actively looking for a job and are willing to change, or are you looking for a job but decided to postpone it due to the pandemic? Or are you focusing on reskilling yourself and decided to look for a job in 6 to 12 months? Or the best case scenario is you are happy where you are right now. Okay. Very good. 56% says that you are happy where you are right now. That's amazing.
Hello, ladies.
Okay.
Hello,
Okay.
Ina.
Hi. Hi, Olga.
I made it.
Okay, so we are going to move on, and first I'm going to introduce the incredible Nadia Edwards-Dashti. Nadia co-founded the Harrington Star Group in 2010, and since that time it has grown into one of the leading fintech recruiters. They have offices in London and in New York. In her 15 years experience in the FST sector, 1,000 people finding jobs. She has grown from a trainee that has several jobs at the same time, is studying, to a managing director of a successful business. She runs her own very popular Women on FinTech podcast series, where she has interviewed over 100 women working in the FinTech area. She is also launching a new podcast series that is themed around maternity and paternity stories in FinTech. And she has designed several diversity and inclusion programs so that she can help companies work towards gender equality. She has a passion for people to make the right career choices and to help them to move in their career milestones. She is a regular at universities talking on about demystifying fintech so that she attracts new talent. And today she is going to tell us how to constantly upskill ourselves during our careers and share some insights with us. And she'll also reflect on the answers that you gave us in the 2 questions in the poll. Nadia, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for such a great introduction. That was absolutely brilliant, and I'm honoured to be here. I'm just going to share my screen now so everyone can see my presentation. So first and foremost, thank you so much for inviting me to speak today. I'm absolutely honoured to speak with you all, and I'm really, really happy that we are going to be talking about constant career upskilling. So for me, this is a topic that I'm really, really passionate about, because I believe that no matter the circumstance within the industry, within life, within our careers, within the world, we should always be looking to get ourselves better every single day. And actually that's a hashtag of mine. I always, at the end of any post that I do on LinkedIn, I do hashtag get better every day. And I'd love it if everyone started to think like that as we go through my short talk. So I'm going to start off by just giving you a little bit of more information about Harrington Starr, the company I co-founded 10 years ago. The month of June actually is our 10th birthday, so we're really happy to have made that milestone. But I want you just to focus on these words in front of you on the screen: building the best teams and jobs versus careers. When we founded the company, yes, we are a recruitment agency and we find people jobs, but we also build people careers. We place technology staff and sales staff into the financial services sector. So we do a lot of work with small startups all the way up to big corporates, such as some of the most traditional banks. And what we always look to do is really support people in how they grow throughout their career. So this is probably why we wanted to do the poll today and talk about whether people are looking for a new job or looking to invest in themselves right now. But also in that poll, we spoke about the pandemic and what's actually changed in the world right now that is affecting us all, and how we can make sure that moving forward, we can really build on our careers no matter the challenge that we're all facing. So one thing to mention is, exactly as Ina said in the introduction, is Harrington Starr, a recruitment agency, but we also host a number of podcast series. Our CEO hosts our FinTech Focused TV series. And something really important to mention about that is when we started the business 10 years ago, digital marketing really didn't exist like it does today. And when we started the business, none of us knew anything about marketing, but we have upskilled ourselves. And this is a theme that I'm going to be talking about throughout this session. So I really want everyone just to be thinking about your career, where you are right now. And this isn't about changing jobs. It's about constantly making yourself better every day. So if you just have a look at this slide, vast visibility worldwide, I want to tell you a little bit about the last 15, 16 years of my career in recruitment. I see recruitment as a responsibility. It isn't just for me about finding somebody a job. It's about investing in their career, and it's about sharing everything I've learned over the last 15 years with you all now. Whenever somebody gets placed within a company, I have integration with lots of different people within that company. So what I end up seeing are trends within different companies, anomalies. I see board composition. I see compensations. Lots of things that I'd keep completely confidential, of course, but understanding these trends and anomalies are things that I really want to share with you today. I understand who gets promoted and why. I understand who gets put on the best projects and who goes on the fastest career pathways. When people are hired, why they're hired. Unfortunately, when people don't work out, why they don't work out. So for me, the challenge that we all face today in the world within the pandemic, it's so important that I share what people are doing to really allow themselves to constantly upskill. And I want you to think about what you answered in that poll, because again, just because you may not be looking for work doesn't mean we shouldn't be upskilling ourselves right now. So moving on, just a little bit about me and the sorts of things I do. Inja, thank you very much for introducing a lot about how I go to universities and speak to the younger generation about why they should join the fintech community, why they should invest in their careers. I'm very, very passionate about making sure that people understand that careers and focusing on yourself and knowing that you are empowered if you empower yourself will allow you to progress yourself. And I don't think that this is just for people at university. I believe it's for people at C-level, at board level. We always have to take time to think about ourselves. And in this page, it's a lot about me, I know, but what I wanted to show is that point that there's so much marketing here, there's so much digital marketing, and 10 years ago I knew nothing about that. So my journey has been a very difficult one, but I have really made sure that I work hard, and I've made sure that I help other people create their own journey, because I believe that people can become whatever they want to as long as they set their mind to it and they put themselves in the right mindset. And what I've been doing over the last 10 years is making sure I do that and I help raise other people up, which is a huge part, I think, of improving ourselves in our careers. So what I really want to talk about today is this word future-proofed, and this phrase future-proofed success. So what I want is for everyone just to take a second, again, think about those polls that you just answered. Do you think right now that your company, that your job, that your career is in a position where you can rethink that work-life balance and you can rethink your productivity levels? On the other hand, the other question of the poll was around whether you are looking to upskill yourself because you are looking to move job, or whether you're looking to upskill yourself, but you're happy in your current job and you just want to progress. I think either way, whatever your answers may be, it's very tailored to you and it's a very personal thing, but all of us need to future-proof our future success. So there's a few words written here on the screen that I want everyone to have a think about. These are really, really basic words: agility, learning, ready to pivot, comfort zone, stretch. You all would have heard these things: having a good attitude, not being afraid. You'll have heard these things many, many times before, but I really want us to talk about them in today's situation. And I want to give you some feedback that I've got from my vast visibility of the market. And I think that that feedback, when you listen to it, you'll be able to put it to yourself and your career and how you can progress yourself. So I think that there are a number of skills that are tangible and there are a number of skills that are intangible. So I want to talk about these words and really get some tangibles out of them. So for me, agility is about you constantly checking your own agility and making sure that you are responding to the situation that we are in at the moment and the pandemic. And I know we're coming out of it, but the world is changing. And we know that there's always going to be another challenge a year, 2 years down the line. It may not be as awful as this challenge has been, but we will always be faced with challenges. And we have to make sure our mindset is ready to be agile, to change, to take on new responsibilities. The learning side of things, I think we all need to be addicted to learning. And I wanted just to share with you some of the newer technologies or more favored technologies that people are talking about. Cloud, AWS, Azure, low latency technologies, unified communication connectivity. Of course, all of this is on the rise. Why? Because we've got so much more remote working. What about compliance? Now knowing that so many people are working from home, what happens to compliance? So what I wanted people to be thinking about, because these are just words that I'm sharing with you and other people's stories, I want you to think about your story and what does the challenge of today really create for you? Working on your attitude and your can-do attitude. Everyone talks about this within careers, but for me, I wanted to highlight the rise of the hybrid role. And what we're seeing in the recruitment industry is that anybody in any position they're in within their career are finding out that actually every role is becoming much more hybrid. People are having to communicate on a technical level. Technologists are having to get better at communication. People who are great at communicating are having to really upskill themselves on some of those technologies I mentioned. Other technologies to think about: Python, JavaScript, Bash, continuous integration. And I'd love everybody to, if you've got more questions on this, to direct message me afterwards, because we can definitely talk more about the detail. But learning and making sure that you're upskilling yourselves on things that you don't know will always help us whatever level that we are at within the business. And there's huge growth areas within automation, as I mentioned, compliance, and the ramifications of remote working. Breaking out of your comfort zone is something that I always like to talk about. And a lot of people say, yes, I know that. Of course, I know I need to do that. But actually, when was the last time, and just pause to think, when was the last time any of you did something that really made you cringe? This morning on LinkedIn, I posted a picture of a frog, and I said to my LinkedIn followers, everybody this morning, let's go out there and eat that frog. Let's do that one thing that we don't want to do, but we know it's good for us. Let's do that one thing that will help our careers, or maybe something in your home life that you've been putting off, but you know you need to do it. Eating that frog is very much a comfort zone thing for me. And I think that we often can forget to check ourselves and think, wait a second, I want to gain that new skill. I want to grow. And it's up to you to allow yourself to be better. So moving on from that and looking at the no fear. No fear is really important to me, and especially from what I'm learning right now from all the different companies and all the different people that I speak to. Right now, lots of people are having to pivot their business, pivot their solution, pivot how they work, changing tack when needed. And right now, changing tact is something that is so important to a lot of companies and a lot of individuals. And I think that, you know, as a company, as a recruitment company, Harrington Starr, we have always had to spend our time on the phone. Recently, because of the pandemic, we've been doing all our calls over Zoom. This was a very easy transition for the whole world, for sure. But because we had already built a digital marketing suite, it meant that we could start doing podcasts with our clients and our candidates. We could start recording FinTech focused TV. We now record roundtables. These are things that we didn't do before. We didn't do as many roundtables as we do now. And we have 6 or 7 people on a Zoom debating a particular theme that we record and post out. And this is so helpful to the marketplace, something we never did. So what I want people to think about is, what don't I do now and what can I do? And a really key point of no fear, and I really had to think about this. It's called hunger in paradise. So we have to right now pivot and not be afraid of doing something different. But when the market gets good again, and when we're all really confident that we're in a really secure marketplace, what pivoting will we do then? And that is one thing I'd love everybody just to pause and think about. What pivoting will you do then? When the market is paradise, will we still be hungry? And I think we have to make sure to elevate ourselves and upskill ourselves in our career. We keep that hunger. So thinking about that hunger for me is another phrase that I love. Challenge creates innovation. And that challenge creating innovation leads me on to this next slide that I'm sharing with you. And I think these are the 5 key things that we all need to be thinking about right now during the situation that we're in. And I look at who's successful right now, who's making sure their business is moving forward, and who's really supporting themselves in their careers. So how do we innovate? I think virtual networking, we're all here today, right? And there's going to be time for Q&A afterwards. And there's going to be time for us to be able to meet people that we hadn't met before by being on this webinar today and by learning. And it's really easy to log in and log out for something like this, but what do we do as follow-up? I for sure will make sure that I speak to at least 4 people that I haven't spoken to before following this webinar today. If we all did that, we are all ensuring that we are getting the most out of virtual networking. I think about open debate on screen. So we all know what it's like to be in a boardroom or to be in a meeting when you're all sitting there together. And we know certain personalities get the most out of situations like that. Now we're on screen. And the real opportunity for me is, how do we make sure that the personality types that aren't necessarily the ones that talk first or talk the loudest are the ones that are getting themselves into the conversation? I believe if we can host conversations better, we can upskill ourselves. If we can make sure that everyone has their point to prove or their piece to say, then we allow for open debate on screen. The upskilling here is the strength. And it's the strength to make sure you get your point heard, and heard in a way that other personality types can listen to. This is very similar to when it's face-to-face, but I think there's a real opportunity in becoming a success with open debate on screen. People-focused people. So important, because right now, and we've all spoken about it, every country over Europe went into lockdown. We're all one by one getting released and allowing to go out. But one thing that most companies have realized and most people have understood and now upskilling themselves is, don't forget the humanity effect, and that people run businesses. And I think that it's so important that as we get stronger and the market gets better, I think it's so important we remember this message that we learned, that people-focused people are needed, and they were needed in a time of crisis. And this time of crisis has allowed some key strengths to rise through, and we mustn't forget them. I've mentioned before the technical communication piece. Technologists have to get better at communicating, and people that are great communicators must get better at becoming technical. And this hybrid is a huge opportunity for all of us to be able to upskill ourselves, and for all of us to be thinking, how am I heard? How is my point received? This takes me on to my final piece, the bigger picture thinking. And I think that beyond COVID and beyond whatever the next struggle will be for us, challenge creates innovation. And you've got to ask yourself, what will I create? My business, for myself, for my career? And if there's anything that anyone does after this session listening to me, is I want you just to take 5 minutes, take in the few things that I've said, because a lot of them are about mindset. I've given some tangibles, but a lot of it is about you thinking about you and how you can apply what's happening in the world to your career, and never let yourself relax on upskilling yourself. So my message is always, challenge creates innovation. You've been challenged recently. What did you do to innovate within your career? So thank you very much for your time. Please everyone think about how this relates to you, and I hope that you found that very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadia. That was incredibly useful and very insightful. And well, I have lots of questions in my mind. However, we will have time for 2 questions. So one of them is related to the poll outcome. We saw that the majority of people are happy in their current jobs. Is it, what is your experience? Is it a general attitude and you have to, turn around them in convincing them to change a job, or how do you see this? So
the market's quite interesting at the moment, because whenever there is volatility within the marketplace, you don't really want to be trying to convince people to leave somewhere that they're happy in. Now, just to give you guys some insight, in terms of vacancies across the UK and Europe, we found at the end of March, there was a huge decline, about 60 to 70% in terms of vacancies. So the message that sends out to people is, even if you were looking, there wouldn't be that many vacancies for you to go and be placed within. On reflection of that, as we go over the months after that, we have started to see an increase, and there has now been a rise in vacancies coming back. And with that, and with more adverts, and with more conversations about who's hiring, what are the new projects, what new innovations have created new projects and products that need to be built, suddenly what we found is lots more people are contacting us saying, well, actually, I would be open to looking. But what we do as a business is we definitely don't encourage anybody who isn't ready to leave, because realistically, in your career, if you can invest in the company you're in, and you can talk openly and honestly with your boss about what new challenges you'd like to have within the business, that's always the best way to go. If that can't be answered in the business, then we're here to help. But we'd only, especially through this crisis, we've never taken anybody from a role and tried to make them feel confident elsewhere when we're not confident with elsewhere. We have to make it fair.
Okay. And there's another thing that came to my mind. Last year, we hosted a local meetup here in Budapest together with Sylvia, and one of the topics was an analysis of a research on women's progress in large organizations in banks. Okay, and what we saw is that often women got stuck in a mid-level positions because they said, well, you know, I like to avoid all the politics and power games. I prefer to just, you know, concentrate on my work. So what do you think? What tactics could be used to overcome this, and, you know, for women to feel more confident and strive for higher positions?
So this is why I love EWPN and all the networks that you guys really support, because I do think that we need to talk to each other, because I'll be honest, it can be absolutely exhausting to feel like you're the only voice in a room that doesn't want to play the power games, that doesn't want to get involved in the politics. But unfortunately, I feel that if something's going to change, who's going to change it if it's not us? And that's something that I keep saying to myself whenever I have a difficult day, or whenever I go and meet a client who I don't think is who I don't think is respecting diversity as much as they should do. I find that pretty soul destroying. But what I do bring myself back with is I say, well, if I'm not going to do it, who else is going to do it? And I think that that's a really empowering way of thinking. Yes, it's hard, the politics and deciding to move into a senior position, a board position, a C-level position. You have to carry a huge weight of responsibility. And I think part of that responsibility is saying, I am going to do my absolute utmost to make a change. In terms of the tactics, I think you then have to go external to groups like this, and to be able to talk openly and freely with trust, with trusted people, where you can say, this was a really difficult day, or this was a difficult week, or this is a difficult topic, and you must be able to have events, because we can't all be the martyrs.
So we need to trust ourselves and our network.
Absolutely.
Okay, Nadia, thank you so much for being here today with us. It was great having you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
See you soon. Thank you. Okay, so it's time to move on to our next speaker today, Olga Feldmayer. Olga is an inspirational entrepreneur. She's a fintech and blockchain specialist. She's the CEO and co-founder of SmartValor, that has been nominated among the top 10 most exciting startups in Europe. Before her journey with SmartValor, Olga was fundamental in shaping the Swiss crypto valley. Olga has held several senior positions in banks such as UBS or Barclays Capital. Also, she has worked for Boston Consulting Group, and she has been and is constantly being nominated to several industry excellence lists, and I could go on and on and on. She's an experienced speaker. She delivered speeches at the West Summit and Money 2020 and others. So Olga, the stage is all yours. We are all very excited to hear your story.
Thank you very much, Ina. Hello, everyone. Hello, ladies. Pleasure to talk to you. I assume a lot of you are from Eastern Europe. I am myself also, I was actually born in Ukraine, raised by a single mother. And basically, you know, kind of like, you know, the struggle for survival and for better life was always part of my past. It wasn't even my choice, it was a destiny. And I'm very thankful for that. So basically, I started my, well, I got, you know, scholarship from German government, was very lucky to get this one. Studied at the university in Germany and then got a top job at Boston Consulting Group, right? Worked there for 5 years, kind of like, you know, actually back then I thought like I will make a career there and maybe I will even make a partner. You know, McKinsey and BCG, this is like top-notch consultancies, you know, if you make partner, you earn like 5 million a year and you're like, and for a while was my goal until I realized, you know, that there are A, very few women in such organization as McKinsey and BCG, and B, even less women become like partners there, right? So, and also I was a foreigner, right? I wasn't even a German, so I was kind of like, you know, not as good for me there. And then, well, you know, headhunters came and there were a lot of banking jobs. So I joined Barclays in London. And that was the moment where I realized that, you know, it's actually super hard to work for a large organization. I was at BCG, kind of like, you know, consultants, clients paying for you 3,000 per day, you know, and when you come there, people appreciate that you're there and they listen to you. Well, you know, the big surprise was now I was inside of the bank at Barclays Capital, and I was saying basically the same things that I was saying as a consultant, but all of a sudden nobody listened and nobody cared because very expensive consultant. And that was kind of like for me. And anyhow, I somehow felt, you know, that I was just a number. I had my identity number. I had like, you know, and I was like, if I'm not there tomorrow, like nobody would care. And this feeling of being, you know, just a absolutely substitutable piece. And then did another mistake. I joined UBS, even worse. And yeah, because you know they offered me a great position of executive director, head of sales, and for Central Europe, wealth management. You know, in Zurich, super good package, salary, everything. And for a while, I believed like, no, I can't make it. You know, I want to be, you know, a successful in a large organization, and yes, I can do it, but unfortunately I couldn't. It was just like well, like previous, like Nadia mentioned, it was so much. It's very complex, right? You need to read people super careful, you need to understand their official agenda and their inofficial, all this power, balance of power in such a complex large organization. So I think you need to be able to do it, and you want to do it, right? So for me, I don't know if it was a smartness. I hope not, but that was definitely at some point not what I thought I want to do. And then it was like, you know, I had 2 kids, small kids at home, and then I was like, wow, midlife crisis. So what am I gonna do, right? So what do I want to do? For the first time in my life, I asked myself a question: what do I want to do? Well, because I had a husband and, you know, he was paying the rent. So all of a sudden I didn't have to ask myself, what do I have to do, but what do I want to do? And that was, you know, quite a life-changing situation, you know, and I figured out, okay, so look, what I really want to do is kind of like, you know, to contribute or be part of this change in financial services. Since financial services, this is my world, this is the only thing that I know, right? Banking, financial services. So what is new? What is changing there? What is the moment in lifetime right now in this industry? And the answer was, as I was feeding my children, you know, sitting on the couch, and I was reading all these books and news and so on, I figured out, oh, there's something like blockchain and Bitcoin. And I was trying to figure out what it is, and I read and read, and I understood nothing. It was like, whatever, you know, I just don't get this. But somehow, you know, then I met some super smart people, and they told me, oh, you know, actually, you should meet, you know, this guy and this guy. And then I met more people from this industry, from blockchain, from Bitcoin. And I spoke to them. And when I spoke to those people, I started to understand this technology and the power of decentralized, you know, Bitcoin is the first, you know, post-national, non-governmental digital money that no government can mess with. Nobody can, you know, define how this currency is issued. It's just a program, right? So it doesn't matter what Chinese want, Russian, or whoever, right? It's programmed money. And then I understood the power of it. You know, me coming from Western Ukraine, living through hyperinflation, you know, seeing how, you know, the country can collapse, right? Ukraine had a state default, right? So we had 10,000% inflation for 5 years. People had nothing. So, and once you live through this, you know, through such a bad events, through such a collapse of the state, partially also due to, you know, accidents with monetary policy, you understand the power of decentralized currency, of digital money, you know, that is not ruled by national banks of any country. So for me, it was kind of like, you know, first discovery of this great technology and what it can do, but it was also partially, you know, idealistic out of my ideology, being from Ukraine and being, you know, victim of all this state defaults and hyperinflation. That was for me like, wait a second, if we would have this digital currency back then, that means that we could, you know, just buy Bitcoin and protect ourselves from inflation. And from Bitcoin, we could go anywhere, right? Since there are no capital controls, there are no borders, it's not a banking system. So it was for me quite a wake-up call. And I thought like, wow, this is so amazing. I'm so lucky that, you know, within my short period of time, that my life falls exactly in this, you know, space where this technology just came in, blockchain technology, and it's going to change everything in finance. I mean, think about it. It could happen like 10 years before, where I was at the university, or 20 years later when I would retire. And I would not have a chance to be part of this groundbreaking change in finance, right? Which happens maybe every 100 years. So once I realized that, I was starting to look for jobs, and of course, you know, being a banker doesn't help in a startup community. So it was actually super tough to find somebody who would hire me, you know, to work in a startup. Actually, I wanted to have my own company, but I figured out like I have no idea how to run a company. So I'd better go to startup and learn how to do it. So yeah, I went even to San Francisco and was trying to talk to people, and they were all looking at me and like, no, you know, a banker, like, why do we need a banker? Nobody needs a banker, right? They all are looking for young guys who can code and stuff like that. But the opportunity found me, you know, I got to know people from San Francisco, one of the top 3 companies in crypto startup, just got started. And they had a problem with banks and with regulation in America. Back in 2014, it was impossible to get licensed as a crypto company. And they figured out that the solution is in Switzerland, that they can talk to Swiss regulator and can figure out like a solution of some sort. But they didn't have anybody in Switzerland. So they told me like, Olga, why don't you do this job for us, right? We need a license, go there and get some kind of license for us so that we can work. And yeah, I asked for salary. Unfortunately, there was almost no salary. There was a little bit of stock options. And, you know, for me, coming from my executive director at UBS, you know, with my posh salary and all the good life here in Switzerland, to all of a sudden earning like 1,500 per month. That was like more like a joke, you know, this is how much you need to, you know, to go 5 times to a restaurant, maybe here. And it was kind of like a decision. So, you know, I'm forfeiting maybe like this 1 million that I would earn with UBS in the next 4 years for working literally for free for some startup from US. Don't know for why and what, but I did that. And it was actually the best decision that I've made in my life, right? So I joined Xapo, and it was a Bitcoin custodian company, and I, you know, got this first Bitcoin license here in Switzerland, lobbied and done, and big story, was all in newspapers. And 2 years later, I realized, wow, if I can do that for other companies, then now I can do it for my company. So this is how Smart Valor was born. We got launched in 2017 as basically cryptocurrency and digital assets exchange. So exchange, like when you think about exchange, is like New York Stock Exchange, right? Or, you know, NASDAQ, but no shares, no fixed income, only cryptocurrencies and digital assets. So digital assets, they can be real assets like gold or shares in a company, but they are kind of like recorded, the ownership is recorded on the blockchain. So it's digital record of ownership, you know, this cryptographic key that can be sent peer-to-peer in peer-to-peer way and can represent the ownership, right? So it's literally that kind of like you can send the physical gold per email without anybody being able to copy your ownership, right? It's kind of like really groundbreaking. And I can talk hours about it. So, but this is more technical side. But basically what we are doing, today we're a digital asset exchange where people can buy and sell Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And a lot of cryptocurrencies today in this space, they actually don't represent currencies, but they represent participation in the companies. So it's more actually kind of like venture capital, right? Where you invest in certain companies. Well, we specifically in just one industry, in blockchain industry. And this company developed different solutions. But, you know, if you would previously buy shares in the companies, so now you buy a token, and this token represents some kind of participation in those projects or companies, right? So we are kind of like somewhere in between, you know, exchange and not really venture capital fund, because people invest directly in companies. For us, we're just an exchange. We're just a place where people buy stuff. Yeah, and we actually have a goal to become one of the top 3 digital asset exchange platforms in Europe. So that's kind of the aspiration, and we licensed, that we're getting different licenses, new licenses. Today, how many? We have kind of like 25 people and run this whole infrastructure of the exchange, which is, you know, quite significant. So that's today. So if anybody of you is interested in Bitcoin and you're wondering what is the place, it's Smart Valor. Yeah, the best exchange in the world. So that's a little bit, you know, maybe an overstatement today, but we definitely want to be one of the places, preferred places in Europe for customers to be in the digital asset space. Maybe turning a little bit into the last topic, which was suggested by Bettina. So the last topic is basically, you know, this path of entrepreneurship, how to get there, who should do it, and what I learned in the last 3 years. So first of all, ladies, I have to tell you, I read 3 books until now. I read the book of Consultant, Advisor. It was a nice book, but I read it and I put it back. And I thought, oh, that's interesting, but that's enough. The second book was Banking, Corporate Life. I read it a little bit and I was very much certain I don't want to read this book. And then I had the third book, you know, entrepreneurship. I joined the startup in Silicon Valley. And, you know, it was super tough. It wasn't very well paid, but it was so fulfilling, right? That I said, wow, this is an amazing book. I'm never going to read anything else. Like, this is my book. So this is why I started my company, right? So I have to say that, you know, to be entrepreneur, it's the most challenging stuff, the most like, you know, hard thing to make and to succeed and to survive and, you know, get the right people, get funding. But it's also the most satisfactory and you know, fulfilling, right? If you're this type of person, kind of like with quite a big ambitions, you know, and you're not afraid of anything, and you think you can do everything, then it's the right path for you, right? Then, because it's a lot of this is here, right? If you think you can do it, it's like actually with everything, right? That is actually, you know, one of my favorite sayings that I read. I don't even remember where. It's some kind of Chinese art, art of war. Yeah, exactly. So they say that every battle is won before it's ever fought. Every battle is won before it's ever fought. So you win the battle before you even fight. If you know you're gonna win, you're gonna win, right? And this is very powerful, you know, kind of like, well, self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If you think you're gonna make it, you're gonna make it. And sometimes it will be super hard and you will think, oh, I'm almost dying. But you will find your way out, right? And I think overall, you know, of course, it's super tough to be a female CEO in this male-dominated world, right? And you probably don't want to know how many doors shut straight in my face, investor doors, when I just knock at them, right? Because they were expecting the CEO guy, you know, and then the lady came and they are like, well, but where's the guy? Where is the CEO? And I'm like, I am the CEO. And they're like, ah, okay, you know what? You have to go. So this is all, you know, super tough. But I think, you know, the most important thing to get a good co-founders, if you have friends, you know, good guys, you know, who are maybe on the technical side, this is the right startup, the right beginning, right? But also today you have so many funding opportunities. You have programs like this European Horizon 2020. You know, founders, right? There, maybe like, you know, 200K, 500K. And from there, you build something like now technology is cheap, right? You can, with very little money, you can already build a lot today, right? So that's the opportunity of our time. And then from there, you will go just step by step. Then you get the bigger investors, and then they give you the first 5 million, and you keep building and building and building. And yeah, everything is possible. So anybody who is thinking about it, you can drop me an email at olga.feldmeier@smartvalor.com, and I'm happy to give you a more personal advice. And with that, I think I'm kind of done, right, Ina, in terms of time.
Okay, thank you, Olga. I'm sure you will receive tons of emails, so be ready for that. Thank you so much for your story. Personally, I really appreciate your honesty and openness, especially when you admitted that first you didn't understand anything about blockchain, because I am a complete blockchain dummy. And what you said made me think that maybe it's still not too late to learn something and upskill myself with that. So that was really, really great to hear. I see that quite a lot of people are interested in, you know, in the journey from being, you know, a senior executive from a large established organization to having, you know, to writing your own story. And one of the questions that we have is, what do you think is the main difference between being in an executive position and being an entrepreneur?
It's a huge difference. So on the positive side, you call the shots, right? You just decide, and this is it, right? And it's actually it's really, really great, right? You don't need to ask anybody for permission. You don't need to well, you maybe need to involve your team and get them buy-in, and but it's kind of like, you know, it's so much more easier than, you know, trying to convince some people there on the top that you're doing the right things, that you know what to do, right? So it's completely the opposite. So this is positive. What else? Well, you're a free woman, right? Like, look at me, I'm here, my kids just came from school, right? I'm working from home. If they have something at 11, I take my bike and I go to them and see them at the school. Yes, but I work every Saturday and Sunday, and I work 90 hours a week, you know, but I decide when to work, right? So this freedom, I think it's particularly great for us women, because look, we are so amazingly good at what men suck, right? So multitasking and getting like hundreds things done at the same time, we're amazing at that, right? And unfortunately, this corporate setup, it's not, you know, it doesn't allow us to do it, right? So I think at latest when you have kids, like being on your own entrepreneur or some independent role is amazing. So that's a positive side. The negative side, well, the risk, right? The risk. So, well, you know, I invested more than $1 million of my private wealth in this company, right? And if it goes wrong way, I have nothing, right? So it's a risk, and also the responsibility, right? And your name. Oh my goodness, if the company goes bankrupt, like what happens to me? Like, what is my name, right? So this pressure of responsibility, and you know, this is kind of like sometimes super hard to take, right? So I learned to like, whatever, everything will be great, not to think about it, right? So that's the biggest differences.
Okay, thank you. And I understood that going from a corporation to your own startup was quite a long journey. Yeah, so it's not like you decided from one moment to the other.
3 years. Yeah.
Do you recall, or was there a moment or anything that you felt that, okay, this is the last straw, and I am going to do my own company? Did you have such a moment?
Yes, the first day I joined UBS. No, I'm being very honest with you, because you know, I don't know, it's just like, you know what is right for you, right? You feel it, you know it actually very fast, right? And the sad fact is, you know, that 85% of people are not happy with their jobs, right? And they just don't know how to change their life, right? And I think, you know, that comes also, especially with us women, from this perception, oh no, they told you you cannot do it, you cannot do it. Like, look, guys, they can do it, but not you, like you as a female. We have this complex. A lot of us, we have this complex of not being as good as others, not as good as men, right? And that's pity. You should throw it away, right? And the best way to do it, look at women like me. I mean, I'm a small example, but look at big women, like, you know, inspirational, like Christine Lagarde, right? Like Merkel, right? And there are also corporate ladies, right? That made it to CEO or founder of the big company. Look at them. And if they can do it, most of us can do it. We just need to believe in us and look for the opportunity. Because if you look constantly for the opportunity, you're going to find it. Sooner or later, it will come.
Okay. I'm sure some of our ladies and gentlemen that are present today and that were thinking whether they should start their own business or not, they are one step closer to being convinced. And your example is it's very interesting, and we are grateful for you being here despite your busy schedule. So thank you so much for your time. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
All the best and good luck, ladies. You can do it. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. So I'm going to hand over to my colleagues, Joanna and Bettina, please. The stage is yours.
So, can you hear me? Okay, great. The next point on the agenda, I'm very pleased. We have something to launch today. But before that, I would like to introduce you to Regina Lau. On our agenda, we had Marta, the founder of EWPN, but unfortunately she couldn't make it. So Regina jumped in last minute. I'm very thankful for that, and it shows the power of the network. Regina is a member of EWPN since 2017. She is executive board member. And not also that, she's also the awards committee. She leads the awards committee for the EWPN annual conference. So for those who don't know, we always host the annual conference. Look out for that. It's very exciting, and there's always an awards committee. I know that Regina is very passionate about the networking, and she once told me that she wished this would be offered when she started her career. She works in the financial services and payments industry for 20 years and very internationally in the US, in the EU, in the UK. So over to you, Regina, and I know you have something to launch.
Yeah, thank you. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, great.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And thanks, everyone, also for joining. We're very excited. I'd like to extend my thanks to Sylvia, Joanna, Bettina, and Ina for hosting today's meeting, and also to Nadia and Olga for sharing all your insights. One of the reasons why we're so excited about the research that we're going to talk about in this next panel discussion is that it's really a deep dive into the fintech ecosystem for women. And so the question here is, why do women need their own financial services? And there are many reasons, but let me leave you with two facts just to think a little bit. One is that even though female-founded companies perform over 60% better than male-founded companies, female founders struggle to get access to investment funding. In fact, globally, they only get about 2.5% of investment monies. And so that's actually a big disparity between financial services and the products offered to female founders. And the second point is that women make up 70 to 80% of all purchasing decisions in a household. However, a few businesses, both large and small, think of women first when creating new products and services. So again, it's a lot of work to do, and but there's also a lot of opportunity. And so we're very excited to be able to launch this research. With that, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Erin Taylor and also Dr. Annette Brolis. Erin is a principal consultant at Canella Consulting, and she specializes in financial behavior, which includes product use, decision-making, and financial inclusion. Annette has an extensive background in fintech innovation, banking, and research, and has also held CEO and CF roles. So two power ladies here that we have, and they actually lead EWPN's research team. So we're very excited. For this launch, they came up with the topic and conducted the research themselves. And we were also very excited. We were able to partner with Keen Innovation so that we can share the findings with you here today. Just so you know, this is the launch. No one's seen it. You're the first to hear about it and see about it. And you can actually find this report on the EWPN website after today's meetup. And so let me turn it over to you, Annette and Erin. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can everybody see my screen? Okay, so thank you very much, Regina, and thank you to everybody. So I'm going to say a few words about how this project developed, and I'll hand over to Annette, who will talk more about the findings. So how this developed, basically, it came out of some research that, well, both Annette and I have been working in the field of finance for many years now. I'm an anthropologist, and I've previously done research on things like mobile money in Haiti, payments in the Netherlands, and also financial inclusion in Africa. And during that research, issues about women in finance, of course, have always arisen. but I never really focused on it closely until I started getting involved with the EWPN a couple of years ago. Annette and I started the EWPN Research Network because we realised there's such a lack of information around about both women working in the industry and also especially product use of financial products and services by women. Luckily, last year I was approached to write a book chapter on the topic of women in financial services for the book you see on this screen called Women, Consumption and Paradox. This is really addressing that gap between women's everyday realities and how the market tries to address them. So we started researching this topic for this particular book, and the book came out a couple of months ago, so if you're interested, that's also available. But by the time we finished writing it, we realized that, in fact, there is so much more work that needs to be done that we decided to actually do the report that we're launching today, Female Finance. And this report goes further in that we really took a good look around the ecosystem to see what kinds of products are already on the market for women and how they try and offer financial services to women. So the research questions we asked were many. The three probably most gripping ones are this question of, do women really need their own financial services? What does it mean to say that women need their own financial services? After all, many of the financial services we have work precisely because they're neutral. You know, when you use cash or some kind of payments product, you really want it to work for everybody and be a pretty similar experience. Could it even be sexist to say that women need their own financial services? Or could you say that tailoring financial services to women does reduce some of the pressures on women, discrimination, and help them fit their life into sort of a better financial framework? The other big problem we discovered, of course, is that women are such a diverse group. How can you say anything about women generally when people are so different in terms of their age group, their professions, their location in the world, their culture? What does it mean to even talk about women as a group? And then, of course, how are companies currently addressing women's need? Historically, it hasn't been a huge thing to create financial products for women. If you can see the advertisement in the center of this slide that says, I carry clout, this is a master charge advertisement from the 1970s that really tried to actually appeal to women on the basis of their desire to have more power and be taken seriously. So this is an early good example of that kind of format. But in fact, most products really have, if they've tried historically to appeal to women, they've tried to take what they call the pink it and shrink it approach, which means making it look a little bit pretty, such as having a Hello Kitty credit card, or with Sheila's Wheels, which is an insurance service, taking the whole pink and sequins thing and going crazy with it. So in terms of producing this report, the method we used was, first we looked at the existing literature on women and financial behaviour to see what's out there. And we then did a big search for financial services aimed at women around the world. And we looked for services that are designed exclusively for women, that really don't expect men to use them at all. We looked at services designed with women's needs in mind. And what we mean by that is services meant for everybody, but where the research teams have taken particular care to find out, okay, and think through how is this product actually going to work for women and not just for, you know, assuming that users are sort of white men or something like that. And then we discovered there was another category of services that really were not designed for women at all. They were not meant for women, but for some reason or other, women tend to find them particularly attractive. And Afterpay in Australia is a great example of this. It was developed for millennials, says the founder, but in fact, the market is really largely women. And if you like, you can look in the report to see why that's so. And of course, we also wanted to find services designed by women or companies founded by women to get a sense of how that affects the dynamic as well. So with all this information, we created a report with 5 different sections in different financial areas, 2 extensive case studies in each section. And after that information, we analyze the pain points and look at the solutions that those companies are trying to address and see how that fits with the evidence. So I'll hand over to Annette now, and she will continue on the presentation.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you for having us. We're very happy to discuss this subject that we've worked for a long time. I am an economist by background, and see if I can get a full screen. And paradigm. Yeah. Oh. That's better, I think, at least. Well, so I did my, when I worked for a long time in fintech and in finance. I worked with the nascent fintech environment in the Nordics. And I did my PhD in collaborative innovation at a rather late stage in life and realized that not much research, academic research, is being done in financial services. And then we met this perspective a little in this study as well. We looked for literature and we found some scattered, some in history, some in consumer behavior, some in risk management, particularly with investment. And we found, of course, some industry reports like you can see here, and some nice books. So that we didn't find the all-encompassing work that would introduce to the subject of women's consumer behavior in finance and their needs to be met. What we found then was that there are many reasons why women might need different products. Women still experience a different everyday work condition from what men experience. Women may live longer, but they have generally less education. They may have a lower pay. And in some parts of the country, in some parts of the world, they really have very many differences in accessing financial services. So there are good reasons to try to target them with specific products, and we haven't found that very much. But what did we find when we look at these new and upcoming fintechs starting to provide services for women? Well, we found that women tend to engage very differently with financial services than do men. Women like to start from a narrative. They like to start from understanding their own lifestyle and their own life situation. They like to be able to consider their hopes and dreams, like we just heard from Olga, and to be followed in that venture by the bank and the partners trying them. We also found that women tend to focus more on impact. So there will be more on sustainability or local engagement or inclusion when asked to work with financial management or investments. And then we see that women tend to see investment risk in a broader perspective. So it's not just a question of the risk with different stocks and bonds. It's a question of how to manage deciding to start a company, how to manage deciding to follow your children in difficult times. And so it's a much broader perspective on risk and investment. And women like to do that, like we do here today, in a community, connecting with other people, and also to follow a learning path. And that's why one of the companies that we follow is quite interesting, the investment club Boleo, which is not particularly targeted at women customers, but nevertheless have about 40% women. And that is, says their CEO, probably because they offer an environment where you can invite your own community and learn to invest together with them. So there are some differences now, and some of them are quite similar, like Erin just said, to some of the studies, some of the solutions provided for millennials. So I'm very eager to follow what's going to come in the future and how this is going to develop, whether it will be these kinds of solutions that will be the general market openings. Also, I would have gone through an example here from the entrepreneurship area, but I think that we are pressed for time, so we'd better just jump in. But I can confirm that looking through the studies that we did, we definitely found that women entrepreneurs, they make up about somewhere between 25 and 50% of all entrepreneurs, and they only obtain somewhere between 2 and 3% of VC funding. So that's disastrous, really. And there's much to be done. But what's quite interesting is that it's not just a question of women pushing. It's definitely a question about women getting better and pushing, but it's also a question of finding VC entrepreneurs with a different mindset so that we can ask women the same questions that we ask men. Because an academic study that came out 2 years ago shows that it is still so that you ask men for their potential, you ask men to win, but you ask women for their previous work and to demonstrate what they can, how they can manage not to fail. So we ask men to win and women not to fail, and that's really not fair. So there's a lot to build on for the future here as well. Well, we came up with creating this ecosystem for all the companies that we looked at. You can find a list of all those companies in the report. But we would really, really love you to share your knowledge of companies and initiatives in these areas with us. And since many of you are working in payments, we'd like to see more initiatives in payments. We found fewer than we expected when looking through it, actually. So it would be really great if you would just contact us and let us know the companies that we missed out on. And this leads me to the last question that we're going to cover, that we'd like to continue researching in this area because there's so much more to be done and to be learned. And one of the things that would be great would be for every ranking service on fintech cities to cover also solutions for women so that we can keep building this ecosystem for female finance. And I think perhaps Erin would like to add a little on other parts of research that could be done, because empirical research with women in different contexts would be really great to do much more of, to understand why we behave like we do.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Annette. I would just like to sort of reiterate the need for actually more empirical research, because not only is there a dearth of sort of an overview of what products are available for women, there's actually very much a lack of research into how women actually use financial products in real life that focuses on what that means, you know, to be a woman using a financial product. So what we would suggest very much, there is a need for an empirical research that combines qualitative and quantitative methods that could look at things like the data coming out of different companies on how women are using services, but also go into the field in different countries and take a close look at how women are using not just one product, but actually all products together. So take a look inside women's financial toolboxes and look at how they might choose between different financial products, for example, and what kind of life circumstances and cultural contexts they are in that mean that they decide to use those tools in that way as well. We feel this will very much enhance the ability of organisations and also NGOs working in aspects like financial inclusion to understand those applications and design and especially deliver better products to women. And the delivery part is just as important as the designing part. Especially in the area of financial inclusion, it's been discovered that you can design products for women that might be perfect for their lives because you've done all the research, but how you deliver them is also super important. They need to be put into women's hands in the right way. So, Annette, back to you, Annette.
Yes, well, we could perhaps add that, one of the points to start would be, I think, for big companies to start working more closely with their customers like the fintechs are trying to do. Because I come from financial services industry, and I found that there's still a tendency, even today, when you ask young people during their studies, to work from inside out. This is an area where you put your products to the customer and you think you have the right way of doing it. And I think that the companies need to go out there and try to understand what customers really need and to work their way into the products they design. But I think enough from us to start with. You can get the report on the EWPN website, like Regina said, and the link is here. While you may be looking at it and getting to know where it is, I should perhaps introduce the last speaker in this area, because we have been very happy to work with the EWPN, evidently knowing them for some time, but at some point in our research, we came into contact with Keen Innovation, and we are very happy that they wanted to support our research and to help us build it. So Elena Kolchev has been our contact person throughout, and she's here with us today. And I think perhaps before we go and dive deep into a panel discussion, it would be great if she could just tell why Keen is interested in this kind of research.
Thank you very much, Erin and Annette. And yes, I think it's very important that the fintechs, but also banks, work very close with customers. So we start in developing of our products at first with interviews or a kind of research. It can be also just secondary literature research to understand first what are the needs, what does the customer really need, and then we really start with the developing, to brainstorming, to think how we can shape the bank, the future, and also what kind of services we can provide for females in this case. Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies, and congratulations. I am sure there's a lot of hard in this creating the report, so I believe it's a big day for you to launch the report and finally publicate it. So congratulations. And with this, I would also like to invite you to join for a panel discussion. We will have some further questions to you, and also, dear audience, please, if you have any questions, just submit at the Q&A button, because we will also have some opportunity during the panel discussion to ask those questions. So, Johanna, please, let's start with the panel discussion.
Yeah, sure. So I actually have a question. My first question goes to Elena. Doing your research around the report, what was the most surprising aspect for you? What didn't you expect when starting the whole project around female finance?
So one point which I would like to note is how important the communication is, and what are the differences between the female needs and the needs of men in the area of communication. So whether it's advisory process or financial tools or the services, it need to be adapted to females' needs. To bring some examples up to better explain what I mean is, for example, that if a man go to bank advisory, then for him it's very important to see the numbers. So how much profit do I have in 1 year or in 3 years? And for women, it's different. So for women, the advisory process or the financial tool need to show how it's really influenced the situation, the life phase, the personal needs. So it's, for example, how it can help the children care to pay, or how we can manage the holidays. Also, the one important point here is also the language. So the language should be very simple and informative, and not in technical terms or competitive. So this is more of a male word. And you should also make sure that it's also fine for people who are less confident and have less knowledge in this topic. Because like Erin and Annette before explained, women often are less confident in this, in the finance team in general. This is, so for product designers and product managers, it's very important to show these points. And I found this very interesting, that there are some big differences, and that it's really as important as the service or the tool itself.
Thank you very much, Elena. We have received another question for Annette. As as we have seen in the presentation, women are pioneers in finance. Why are research and products still concentrating on men? Can you give a summary here? What you found out about in your whole research and analysis?
I definitely think I can, because I think this has to do with what we discussed at the end of the presentation, that many financial services companies actually are very innovative, but they're innovative based on technology and innovation. So they see a new technology come up like blockchain or AI or machine learning, and they say, well, this could make our customers' products so much more convenient for us and for the customer. That would be really great, and they put it to the customer. And in that perspective, they see mostly the group that's often targeted by this kind of development. That's the young white male, I'm sorry, of a certain wealth standing. They are, of course, a minority, but I think they're still very much the target group for financial companies. I hope I slightly offend somebody, because I'd really like to see this change. I mean, if you look to the retail industry, they're much more into the needs of their customers and follow the customers every step. I think that's a big reason.
Thank you very much, Annette. We're actually at the end when we look at the time, but I think we have so many questions. We continue a little bit. I hope the participants still stay with us. But I know, Bettina, you also have a few questions, so I will hand over to you.
Yes, thank you very much. So there would be one question to Annette. When looking at the risk appetite, what is the difference between men and women actually? That would be an exciting topic to hear a bit more.
Yes, and I think you're right. It's a spot-on question. If we look to the handling of risk between stocks and bonds, the jury is still out on it. I have seen a summary of, I think, 200 quantitative studies trying to understand whether there's a different risk appetite between men and women, and they came out not being conclusive. They couldn't say if it was either way. But I definitely think that women often see investment in a broader perspective. So they will see, do I need to take a risk now at this point in my career? Because then I will be able to follow my child who's experiencing trouble, or I will be able to nurse my elderly parents, and I can do everything at the same time, like Olga said, multitask. And so they might just decide to change their careers, and that's an investment in their own experience, in their own knowledge, their own skills. But it's a different kind of investment from just handling stocks and bonds.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Also, there is a question, I think it's really a relevant one, that what is really the future of financial services for women? What do you guys believe? I would be really interested to hear as well. Maybe Elena or Erin, please feel free to take the question.
Yeah, I think the future will be actually quite exciting. I think it'll be much more sophisticated. I believe there's a growing awareness of the need to pay attention to these issues, and there's also more capacity to do so. So we know that with fintechs are more able to create customer-centric solutions for more niche populations. Well, women is not exactly a niche group, but the thinking is similar. So there's a push to actually focus down more on different populations and create solutions that are relevant. And I actually think that's the direction we're going.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I would have one question, and I would like to ask it openly to all the panelists. More like kind of practical advice. What can you give? In the report, I read that fintech startups, it's easier for them to start designing female diversity services. But what is it if you are in a large organization and you want to change, and you want to take that path and want to include this diversity? What is the practical advice? What would be the first step?
So I'll just go very quickly on that one in case anyone else wants to jump in. But the first step, you have to review your current product offerings and try and think about what assumptions went into their making. You know, when you made a product or a service, did you think about women? Did you do specific research on women? Was there a designer in your company who thought about this? And maybe you don't know it, you know, as say the director of a section, but maybe some thought did go into this, you know. And then if not, did you accidentally design something that is actually super useful for women? Because that also happens. So first have an assessment and make sure you have multiple voices in that conversation so you can check your assumptions about what's going on. And perhaps also the second step would then be to do some research with your existing customers or your desired customer base to see if those assumptions play out in reality.
Thank you, Erin. Annette, Elena, what do you think? Any advice you can give for our participants?
I definitely agree with Erin that it's the first step is always to acknowledge that you might have there might be a question to address. And the second is to find somebody to help you do that. Erin might be that person, but I'm sure there must be consultancies all over the world who should address it. So that's one of the paths that we will look to for the future, also to ask them, why are they not addressing this? So that's from another angle.
Thank you, Annette.
All right. Is there still any question from the audience side or a really nice chance to launch the report and discuss all these interesting insights. So I would like to just thank everybody to participate today. I would like to thank you all the speakers and the panelists. You guys really fantastic. Thank you for joining us. I think we have very nice takeaways, and I would like to echo Nadia saying, get better every day. I think this is why we are here, to share knowledge, to share thoughts, what's going on in the space, how can we get better, how can we know more. So I would like to echo this. Also, I would like to take the occasion and thank my, my co-hosts. It was really a large fun to organize this with collaboration and joint forces with Hungary and Austria to join on these special events. And last but not least, I hope also the audience had fun and enjoyed it. So thank you very much. And yeah, wish you a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. See you next time.